I'd like to call to order our meeting today, the Committee on Economic Development. Today is Tuesday, March 23rd, 10:15 a.m. We have a bunch of resos and a couple of bills at the end of our agenda. With all of our hearings being streamed live on YouTube, if we do get cut off, we'll do our best to get you back on here, but we do have your written testimony. And if you'd like to stand on that, that would be great as well. First up, we have HCR 44 and HR 35, urging the United States President Joseph R. Biden and the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation to hold the 2023 Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Honolulu, Hawaii. First up, we have Hawaii Tourism Authority, John DeFries, in support. Not here. And I think that is all the testimony. Members have any questions? All right, we'll move on to HCR 134, HR 114, requesting the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism to commission the development of evidence-based research and a policy framework to guide decision-making on gambling-related issues. First up, we have DBED with comments.
Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee, thank you so much. DBED stands in our written testimony providing comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have DHHL in support. They may or may not be here. I know they have a conflict. Well, we do have their testimony, and then we do have an individual in support, Mr. Ray Cho.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Chair, Vice Chair, thank you. I grew up in Hawaii. I graduated from Kalani and got my PhD from the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. I lived there for 11 years. I currently work in the Center for Gambling Studies at the Rutgers School of Social Work. The pandemic has shown that data and evidence-based research is key to addressing economic ripple effects. The same is true for regulated gambling. Las Vegas, as the 9th island of Hawaii, is an example of a ripple effect. Beyond a steady exporting of tourism, many locals, including Native Hawaiians, migrate to Vegas for the lower cost of living. Starting in the mid-1970s, a proud community has established itself with restaurants, ABC stores, and Aloha festivals. This resolution is asking the state to do what locals already do for themselves. They look at their economic situation, they gather and evaluate data, then decide it makes sense to leave Hawaii, even at the risk of exposing their families to gambling. If locals can invest resources and make big decisions, why can't our government do the same? Mahalo for your time, and I'm happy to address any questions. I've also provided written testimony.
Thank you, and that's all the testifiers we have for this measure. Members, do you have any questions? I did have a question for Mr. Cho.
Yes.
You did assist in the drafting of this resolution. I had a question on one of the be it further resolved clauses, where it says the research should be funded and by a dedicated and protected revenue stream outside of the general fund to ensure independent analysis of key research questions. What funding do you suggest, recommend, or is out there to do such a study?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I haven't completely fettered that out. Certainly, I think anything that's state-sponsored, I think puts that much more of a stamp of approval on the process. And I can also say, the research should be commissioned, so there's no sort of trace of any sort of conflict. Industry-funded research, will always tend to skew in a certain way. So, because this is a public health and safety issue, it should be funded by a source that has that sort of institutional credibility that lends itself to independent conclusions and research.
And in your opinion, the department's estimate of $250,000, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that is a good starting point number. And the way I envision this is, there's definitely sort of a 2-year around a 2-year rollout period where you're kind of just setting the infrastructure in place for data collection, and that's where you're kind of gathering data before anything has been built on what the current state of gambling activity is in Hawaii. And from there, that can help to inform decisions about, where a facility would be located. And I think once you have a specific site in mind, certainly build one will be a lot different if you built it, sort of in the city center or something that's effect. Putting more tangible aspects and specifics based on data like public health and safety data, I think would really help inform a more productive discourse instead of having a recurrent issue year over year where we just kind of talk about gambling in a broad way.
Okay, thank you. Any other members have any questions? If not, we'll be moving on to HCR 136. First up, we have the Department of Foreign Homelands. They are in support. And that is all the testifiers we have. Any questions, members? If not, we'll move on to HCR 161. Supporting and adopting the goals set forth in the Digital Equity Declaration for Hawaii adopted by the Broadband Hawaii. First up, we have DBED, Bert Lum in support. Bert's not here. Next, we have Department of Education in support, Brooke Connor.
Aloha, Chair, members of the committee. This is Brooke Connor from the Department of Education, offering support of the intent and some comments. We're here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, signed up on Zoom, we have Aloha Care, Peggy Mirzwa in support.
Aloha, Rep. Hull. Aloha Care is in support of this and would like to thank the committee for hearing the measure, as well as the Broadband Hawaii for all the work that they've done dealing with the broadband challenges in the state and making recommendations. Thanks so much.
Next, that's all the testifiers we have signed up on Zoom. Do you have anybody, any questions, members? I think I did skip a resolution. I skipped HCR 137. So HCR 137 requesting the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism to compile a short list of Fortune 500 companies that are suitable to relocate to Hawaii and identify means and incentives to entice these companies to relocate. First up, we have the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in support. Not here. Actually, we have nobody here signed up on Zoom to testify. Members, I guess we don't have anybody to question either.
Chair.
Oh, yes, Dennis, would you like to testify on this measure?
Yes.
Oh, I did get your late testimony.
Yeah, DBED apologizes. It submitted late testimony, but we stand on our written testimony, offering comments.
Thank you, Dennis. Members, anybody have questions for DBED? Nope. If not, we will move on to HR 69, urging the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism to establish a Job Corps program to help address unemployment impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and support economic diversification. First up, we have DBED, Dennis Lang with comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair. DBED stands in its written testimony, offering comments.
And thank you. And we have Kupu in support.
Aloha, Chair, Vice Chair, and members of the committee. This is Kavika Riley. On behalf of Kupu, we're standing on our testimony in support, and we're available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the testifiers we have signed up on Zoom. Members, do you have any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have Senate Bill 496 relating to agriculture. First up, we have the Department of Agriculture with comments.
Good morning, Chair Holt and members of the committee. Morris Sata for the department. The department will stand on its written testimony appreciating the intent of the measure, but we have some concerns about the metrics and other participants who maybe should be included to obtain the proper information that's needed by this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau in support.
Good morning, Vice Chair Holt, Chair Quinlan, members of the committee. Brian Miyamoto here on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau. We'll stand on a written testimony in support of this measure.
Thank you. And we have Hawaii Food Industry Association in support, Lauren Zerbel.
Good morning, Vice Chair, Chair, members of the committee. This is Alexis Chapman for HFIA. We are in support of this measure, and we believe that providing tax credits is a very powerful tool to incentivize the local growers to prioritize these products. And we encourage the committee to consider restoring language to that effect in the measure. And we're available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's all the testifiers we have for that measure. Members, have any questions? Representative Onishi.
Department of Ag, you have recommendations for people to look at this issue?
Yes, normally these types of agricultural economic data is a compilation of contributions from CTAR, their UH's extension unit, the federal NAS, statistics organizations, and to some extent DBED. And given our limited economic analysis and data collection staffing, we've usually, at least in the past decade or so, worked in conjunction with those other organizations to compile accurate data. And those are it's a collaborative effort that I thought, it would make more sense to have all of these various participants contributing to this effort.
Okay, but this bill doesn't restrict you from doing that, does it?
Right, no, it doesn't, but it's just a comment because it didn't identify any other potential participants.
Yeah, but you guys can decide who you should gather information from, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Members, any further questions? If not, we'll be moving on to the final measure, Senate Bill 1054, relating to the Brownfields Cleanup Revolving Loan Fund. And first up, we have Office of Planning in support.
Yes, good morning, Vice Chair Holt. Chair and members of the committee, we appreciate your support for this measure. OP and the Department of Business, Economic Development and Tourism stands on written testimony in strong support of this measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's all the testifiers we have signed up to testify via Zoom. Members who have any questions? Seeing none, we'll recess for decision making. Thank you. We're back for decision making. So first up on the agenda, HCR 44 and HR 35, we will be passing unamended. Any questions, comments, concerns from the members? See none, chair for them.
HCR 44 and HR 35, chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and vice chair vote aye. Rep. Belatti is excused. Rep. Kobayashi.
Aye.
Rep. Onishi.
Aye.
Rep. Sayama.
Aye.
Rep. Takayama.
Aye.
Rep. Okimoto. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. For the next measure, HCR 134, HR 114, we will be making a bunch of amendments. First, we'll be changing the title to requesting the Legislative Reference Bureau to conduct a study on relevant public health and safety concerns to guide decision-making on gaming-related issues. This is to address the concerns from the department that they don't have $250,000 to conduct this study. I understand the LRB will probably have concerns as well, but we'll work through that. Also, we'll be removing any reference to a policy framework. I don't believe the study should include a policy framework, as we can figure that out once the study is completed. On page 2, line 11, small change. It said 70 to 100 game rooms in Hawaii. It was actually on Oahu, so we'll just be making that change. On page 3, the be it further resolved clause, we'll be removing clauses 3 and 4, and also on page 4, clauses 6 and 7. And then we will add one to say the study will include the impact of public health and safety in the surrounding communities. The next two further resolved clauses will be removed, referring to funding and the policy framework. And then the final, be it further resolved, it'll be transmitted to the Legislative Reference Bureau and not DBED. So with that, members, any questions, comments, concerns? If not, Vice Chair with amendments.
HCR 134 and HR 114, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and vice chair vote aye. Note in the absence of Rep. Belatti, are there any nays? Are there any with reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. The next measure is HCR 136 and HR 116. We will be deferring these measures. I don't believe we need a resolution to tell the Department of Hawaiian Homelands to study what they can do in their own land. So we'll be deferring that measure. HCR 137, we will be passing out with amendments. It needs to add a reporting clause to report to the legislature prior to the regular session of 2022. Other than that, just technical amendments. Any questions, comments, or concerns? If not, HR 137 with amendments.
HCR 137, HR 117, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Noting the excused absence of Representative Belatti, members, are there any nays? Are there any reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next measure, HR 161, HR 137. We will be making amendments for clarity, consistency, and style. Members, any questions, comments, concerns? If not, Vice Chair.
HCR 161, HR 137, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and vice chair vote aye. Are there any nays? Are there any with reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Next, we have HR 69. And we will be passing with technical amendments. Any questions, comments, concerns? Vice Chair.
HR 69, chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. Chair and vice chair vote aye. Are there any nays? Are there any with reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Senate Bill 496, relating to agriculture. Chair's recommendation to pass as is. Questions, comments, concerns? If not, Chair for the vote.
SB 496, SD2, HD1, chair's recommendation is to pass. I'm sorry, did you say
as
is? Chair and vice chair vote aye. Are there any nays? Are there any with reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. Last measure on the agenda, Senate Bill 1054. Chair's recommendation to pass as is. Any questions, comments, concerns? No, Chair for the vote.
SB 1054 SD2, Chair's recommendation is to pass as is. Chair and Vice Chair vote aye. Are there any nays? Are there any with reservations? Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you, members. We are adjourned.